We're learning Tiger Woods is leaving Nike after a nearly 30-year partnership. In a social media post, the golf star thanked Nike founder Phil Knight for his passion and vision. Woods signed with Nike at the age of 20 when he turned professional. Nike acknowledged Tiger's contribution to golf in a social media post, saying he challenged his competition and stereotypes. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
Shop the closeout event now at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, save an extra $100 when you spend $999 or more on all major appliances. Valid 1/4/24 to 1/24/24. Selection varies by location while supplies last. See Lowe's.com for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Impressive win for the Clippers last night. They beat Phoenix by 27. All 5 starters scored in double figures. Paul George led the way with 25 points. Kawhi Leonard had 5 steals. Over the past 5 games, Kawhi has 15 steals and 7 block shots. The Clippers are straight up balling. They are 10 games over 500 and 15-3 since December 1st. The Lakers are back on the court tonight. They play Toronto at Crypto.com, 7:30 tip-off. The Lakers are trying to get back to 500. They're 1 game below. Michigan wins the college football national championship. They beat Washington last night by 21 to cap a 15-0 season. Let the chatter begin. Did Jim Harbaugh coach his final game in Michigan? The Chargers need a premier coach like Harbaugh to help turn around the franchise and restore the fan base. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
So, what are you doing this Friday morning? How about you come join the KBLA delegation as we make a historic announcement and unveil our climate justice campaign for 2024. We'll be assembled for this major press conference along with LA Mayor Karen Bass, Ben Jealous, Executive Director of the Sierra Club, and a host of other public and private leaders who are joining us on this journey to justice, climate justice. We can't think of a better way to kick off the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, linking social justice and climate justice. So, come join us this Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. at the beautiful MLK Memorial Tree Grove at the top of Kenneth Hahn Park off La Cienega. Once again, that's this Friday morning, January 12th at 10:30 a.m. as we take on the task of elevating the climate conversation by amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the climate catastrophes we are all witnessing in real time. KBLA delegation, we hope to see you this Friday morning at KBLA Talk 1580. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king.
Give me the green light. Give me just one night. I'm ready to go right now. I'm ready to go right now. Let's go. I'm ready to go right now. I'm ready to go right now. I see you move. I'm checking your smile. Working your back like it's going out of style. Shake just a little bit faster. Shake just a little now, girl. I'm dying to meet you, so let's mess around. Got an obsession with us getting down. Come just a little bit closer. I just need permission, so give me the green light. Give me just one.
Okay, I'm ready to go right now. I'm Tavis Smiley, and what an amazing conversation with Bishop Kenneth Omer, and talking about transition this year and trying to motivate you to maximize the moment that is 2024. I've been waiting for this conversation. I can tell you right now, I was just saying to her, you got to come back, because I can already tell that I already know that 30 minutes is not going to be enough for this conversation, but we got on her schedule today. I wasn't going to pass up the opportunity to get her in studio. So she's here, but I promise we'll continue this conversation down the road. But it's going to be a great hour. On the back side of this hour, on the B side, Nichelle Turner from Entertainment Tonight, co-host, joins us with some trending entertainment news. We'll talk to Nichelle again on the B side of this hour, but I commenced this hour with Janelle English. Here's the introduction right quick. So you recall last summer when this story broke, and there were memes and posts all over social media, all around the world, about what was happening to all these powerful sisters in Hollywood who were just disappearing. All these sisters running, helping to run these major companies, all in this DE and I space. And one by one, they started just disappearing. I remember like it was yesterday. It's back in June or July. Again, there were memes everywhere with all their beautiful faces on these, flyers, and in these news stories. Even Hollywood, Variety, and Hollywood Reporter. Everybody started writing stories. What's happening with all these companies to all these sisters, and why are they disappearing in this DE and I space? One of those sisters is Janelle English, and I'm delighted to have her in studio right about now. Janelle, Happy New Year. Good to see you. How are you today?
Happy New Year. I'm doing really well. I'm so happy to be here with you. And yeah, it's a great day.
I'm delighted to have you. We're going to talk about Elizabeth,
yes.
Your new project,
yes.
in a relatively new project, in a moment. But I'm just watching my time. I want to make the most of it. Again, I promise you 30 minutes ain't going to be enough, so we'll do it again. but take me back to last summer and tell me what was happening specifically to you, and more broadly, how you read that moment that you were a part of, where all these sisters were vacating these important roles in Hollywood.
Yeah, it's so funny thinking back to that moment, because I always hoped I would go viral for something that wasn't leaving a job, but it was actually about, the work that I had done.
Right.
It was an interesting time, right? I think for me, and I get the question a lot, was this a coordinated exit? Because I know these women, I respect these women, I've, been in the trenches with these women in different ways. It wasn't coordinated. Honestly, I had no idea. And I think a lot of people didn't realize I had resigned like a month and a half prior to my exit and prior to the news breaking. And it was a conscious decision. For me, when I took the job at the Academy, at the Oscars,
and your job, I should have explained
yes.
that. Your job specifically was?
I was the Executive Vice President of Impact and Inclusion.
At the Academy.
At the Academy, or
yes.
the Oscars, however you want to describe it.
Yep.
But yeah, that was my role. And when I first joined the Academy, I was very intentional about listing out all of the things I wanted to accomplish in that role. And I joined in 2020 at a time when, diversity hires, diversity jobs were just being filled up. I'd never had more job offers in my life at that time. And I took the job. And the best advice I ever had from a mentor of mine when I started pursuing this career path was be very intentional about what you want to accomplish. Because in these worlds, you're never going to be able to do enough. There's always going to be a community that is still marginalized, a perspective that has not been considered, a voice that needs to be heard. So be very clear about what you want to accomplish stepping into these roles, and let that be your North Star. Don't get distracted. Stay focused. And I write down everything I want to accomplish. And I did that for the Academy. But at the time I left, I had accomplished everything that I wanted to in that particular position. And I was sitting there and I had to seriously reflect and say, do I have what I need to create an entirely new set of goals and achieve them? Or is it time for me to move on? And have I seen enough of how this industry is working and the opportunities that are existing to go off and fight the good fight in another way, in another space? And I did. But I think there was a real shift in terms of the focus, the energy, the respect for a lot of these positions. And I've always said, for me, diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, those are my values. And I've had a lot of success progressing those values in roles where inclusion or diversity wasn't a part of my job title, sometimes more so. So I feel like we're shifting back to this cycle where change and progress is going to require every single person to take some accountability and ownership.
I want to come to that notion in a moment, how we all have a role to play in this process. But there are two things that are just burning inside me that I want to get to when we come forward in a moment here. The first is how in such a short period of time, just a couple of years by your own math, you had accomplished everything you thought that you could accomplish in a system that is fraught, I should say, with all kinds of drama around issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you felt like in a couple of years you'd done all that you could do. I want to probe that when we come forward. And the other thing is why you, in a moment like that, to your point, you had all these job offers. But this story is long running of the ways in which Hollywood maltreats people of color, particularly African Americans, and not just us. Why would somebody want to step into that particular space in the first place. So I want to probe those two things when we come forward. Great deal want to talk about. We haven't gotten to yet Elizabeth, her new project, and what she intends to do and is doing regarding these issues in the months and years ahead. Her name is Janelle English, and I'm glad to have her right now on Tavis Smiley.
You're listening to Tavis Smiley. Tavis Smiley. Ranked number 45 on the Heavy 100 list of the 100 most important radio talk show hosts in America.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
There's only a few days left for open enrollment, starting at $0 a month. LA Care Covered offers the benefits you need to achieve your health goals. $0 preventive services, 24/7 virtual care and nurse advice lines, walk-in minute clinics, free fitness and nutrition classes, and more. Become a member of LA's most affordable health plan. Get a free instant quote at lacarecovered.org. Have open enrollment questions? Connect with us today at 855-222-4239. Find your affordable path to wellness with LA Care Covered today.
There are many things to love about winter. Cozy sweaters, celebrations, and family time. But winter can also bring many stressors, extra expenses, seasonal bugs, and so much family time. If you and your loved ones are feeling stressed or anxious this winter, CalHope can help. Check out our free mental health resource at calhope.org today.
Hey Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Is this tree good for climbing? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Safe gun storage saves lives. Learn how to make your home safer at endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right, yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
He's rooting for everybody black. Everybody black. More of Tavis Smiley coming your way right now.
All right, Janelle English, tell me, I guess I'll start here. Why, with all that this academy has endured and continues to endure, frankly, it was just years ago, it seems, Oscars So White. So we know this institution has done a lot of great work, but they have a lot of challenges when it comes to people who look like you and I with melanin in our skin. Why, in 2020, did you want to go inside that building?
Yeah, it's funny because I mentioned earlier I had so many job offers, more than I've ever had. Mm-hmm. It's like, wow, you have diversity experience. We need you. My God. I didn't really get a lot of clarity from those other organizations as to what they needed. Mm-hmm. And the Academy, interestingly enough, they started a lot of their journey in 2015 following Oscars So White. And they were doing a lot of work. So 2020 rolled around, and it was following a 5-year commitment of the Academy's efforts to double the number of women and underrepresented racial and ethnic groups in the organization. 2020 rolls around, and they were like, okay, where do we go from here? Mm-hmm. I loved that I was stepping into an organization that, one, acknowledged there was an opportunity, there were some challenges, and two, was really looking at me as an operational leader. Mm-hmm. I took that job because it was one of the only job offers that I had that was reporting directly into the COO, who was a Black woman at the time, Christine Simmons. Mm-hmm. And I've always saw myself as an operational leader. I am not, here to just make you feel good and tell a cute little story publicly, but I'm operational. So I will go in and I will build systems. I will challenge systems. I will change systems. That's how I move. The way that I've always worked is about looking at the end goal and how do I shift a process to allow for more access, for more inclusion, for more representation. And that's what I did. So the Academy at that point in time had voted in the representation and inclusion standards for Best Picture consideration. I love that the board did that. And my job when I first stepped in was to actually implement that. So what are these standards for representation and inclusion that a film needs to meet in order to be eligible for Best Picture consideration? So that was the juicy carrot that existed that brought me in. And I've always believed that art, including the art of filmmaking, is the most honest representation of where we are as humanity at a point in time. So the criticality of putting pressure on a system to be more inclusive, more diverse, that was essential for me. That's why I said yes, because we are at a time where now more than ever, the stories that need to be told, the perspectives that need to be seen, the actors that need to portray them, the editors that need to edit them, we need that diversity in order to preserve the honesty of where we are as humanity.
That approach, though, got a lot of critique, a lot of criticism.
Absolutely.
I can still hear Richard Dreyfuss in the back. You know where I'm going, right?
Yes.
I can hear Dreyfuss in the back of my head, who I've known for years, and other actors, white actors, producers, who had a problem with that. They kind of saw it as bean counting, and they said, hey, this is a creative process. You cannot hamstring a creative process with all this other stuff, these rules and regulations and this number of people doing this and this number of people doing that. So, okay, so we love the fact that we want. It felt like lip service to me to the notion of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But again, there were a lot of folk in this industry who thought that was the wrong approach. I say all that to ask whether or not you, Janelle English, thought after Oscars So White that the approach was the right approach.
I think it was.
Okay.
I genuinely stand by that. And I think, one of my proudest accomplishments in my time at that organization was championing that effort and bringing it to fruition. I say that to say every journey for inclusion or equity, it's going to be different. I think for the Academy, it started very much in looking at how do we diversify our membership. And for those of you who don't know, it's that membership who votes on the Oscars, right? So naturally, when you have more diverse membership, they're going to acknowledge more diverse films in the awards process. So that was the start of the journey. But the reality is when you got to 2020 and you look around, it's not enough that the membership is diverse if the body of work that they are voting on is not also diverse. So the inclusion standards, when you actually look at what they were, and I'll be honest, they weren't really that hard to meet. It was designed to prompt questions and thoughtful consideration about the processes that are used to champion films within a studio system that, historically has been very exclusive. And I'm incredibly proud that we started to put pressure on those systems. You're looking at, many different ways to achieve inclusion standards, not just the story or the actors, but the behind the camera representation, the marketing and distribution of a film. Are you actually using that film project to invest in the next generation as well? So it wasn't actually about controlling a storyline at all, but it was really encouraging a filmmaker and the filmmaking community to say, okay, what opportunities do I have to set up the future of this industry by either bringing in, apprentices, trainees, all of that fun stuff, behind the camera, on set, et cetera, looking at how a film's distributed globally, what's the marketing, how diverse is that team that's doing the marketing, what do your creative executives look like as well? It was a whole ecosystem of filmmaking, and I think people got distracted saying the Academy is telling you what films to make, when really it wasn't that.
So the other question I said I wanted to raise, which I'll put forth now, is how then you felt after coming in the door in 2020, which we've now excavated, and what you were doing. How is it a couple of years later you felt that you had done all that you could do in that space?
Yeah. The reality is to do that work in this type of environment where you are every day waking up, putting your armor on because someone's going to challenge you, someone's going to fight you, all of that. I mentally, physically, spiritually was not happy. And I remember the last Oscars that I was sitting in, and last year was an incredible year, especially for Black women in terms of the types of films and the stories that were being championed. A lot of those stories, a lot of that incredible talent did not get acknowledged or recognized. And I had spent the last couple years, that was my third Oscars at that point, really advocating for inclusion. And then I was sitting there, and I remember at one point seeing Angela Bassett's face when, she didn't get the Oscar. And her face was my face. I was devastated. And as much as I was working to, again, put pressure on systems and to instigate conversations at the utmost level of the industry, it didn't feel like it was enough. And I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I was tired. Yeah. I was tired. And it was funny. My sister actually helped me get to this point of revelation before I wrote my op-ed for the LA Times. And it was really thinking about how the system that I was working so hard to challenge, the system being the Oscar and getting this award, that it wasn't really recognizing me and me being a Black woman.
So you felt invisible?
Yes. Yeah. And I think, there's a lot of conversation right now around the expectations that are placed on Black women. I put a lot of effort in really advocating for so many communities in that space. It was very intentional. And part of the reason that I wrote my op-ed is, yes, there were all these memes, there were all these viral moments, Black Twitter popping off, all of that fun stuff when I left. But I wanted to actually share a little bit more about my story, my experience, what it felt like to be in this type of position. And I'm incredibly proud of that, of being that vulnerable in a very public space. And I hope it does encourage many more of us, and by us, I am now speaking to Black women in this industry, to speak our truth as well, because there is, I think, a lot of power in that.
You said a lot there, and I think what I want to probe next is the kind of response you received to your LA Times op-ed. I remember it well. I read it a few times. It was really provocative. I thought it was arresting. I thought it was, first of all, beautifully written. You were transparent in it. And we're getting more of that in this conversation in real time. But I've been curious, and so now I have you in front of me in the studio. I can ask you face to face. What kind of response did you get to that? Because to your point, the memes, stuff was everywhere with all the pictures of all these, again, brilliant, beautiful Black women who are on their own choosing to just walk away from this nonsense. Many of them just walking away, which was the case with you. Others sort of being pushed out, whatever those stories may have been. But for whatever reason or reasons, a bunch of powerful Black women in diversity, equity, and inclusion space were exiting Hollywood all at the same time. And then you chose to write this op-ed in the LA Times. What kind of response did you get to that op-ed?
Yeah, for the most part, it was positive. And it was affirming, this belief that I had that, okay, Janelle, it's time for you to own your truth, to speak your truth, to really take up space. Like, that's what's needed in this season of you doing this work. And yeah, again, for the most part, positive, right? But I remember it was so funny. I was on a date, dating in LA. That's a whole other conversation. I was on this date though, and this guy, so sweet, right? He's like, "Oh, I read this op-ed that you wrote." He's like, "Wow, this was really great." He's not at all in the industry, and he's like, "But whoa, did you read the comments?" And I like paused on this date. I was like, oh my God, everyone in my family, my community, they were like, don't read the comments. Because it's going to be trolls coming in, people who don't know, and you just poured out your soul and were really vulnerable. But I went home from that day, I read the comments. I did not sleep that night. Like, it hurts, right? You put yourself out there and you allow yourself to be vulnerable. And there were some really, really nasty comments that came in. That said, there was one comment in particular that really stuck with me. And it was, somebody had said, oh, I heard from a friend who's an Academy member that if Janelle hadn't resigned, she would have been fired anyways because she didn't do enough for the Latino community or the Asian community. And that one really, really sat with me, because when I look back at everything I accomplished in that role, I did more for the Latino community in that time than the Academy had ever done. I did more for the disability community than the Academy had ever done. I laid a foundation for true progress and momentum and forward movement in a way that it had never been done. And I couldn't help but sit here and really think, would this same level of criticism be applied to me if I wasn't a Black woman? It's a question that I still sit with. You know, what are the expectations for Black women, particularly in these roles? Because we're so brilliant at standing in the gap and uplifting all of these communities. Why didn't someone actually sit there and celebrate what I did do? And rather you had someone say what I didn't do. And I struggle with that. Because a lot of times, and a lot of the challenge with these sorts of diversity roles is you're really not set up for success. And I go back to the guidance I was given when I started this work. Be very clear on your goals, because, you know, everyone's always going to say what you're not doing, and you're always going to be leaving someone behind in some capacity. So you need to be clear about what your goals are in this particular role. So yeah, I was at the Academy for almost 3 years, and the things that I accomplished were very much around the inclusion standards. It was very much around making the Oscars the most accessible award show that had ever been seen. It had been launching for the first time an ASL live stream that brought in over 2 million viewers, making, again, the Oscars visible to a whole different community in a different way. I looked at how you can create more community amongst underrepresented voices within the organization. And I had incredible partners working with me on that. You know, it was a powerful time.
You mentioned a moment ago, let me just say, I just got, they just informed me, first of all, God works in mysterious ways. I started this conversation 27 minutes ago by saying, I ain't got enough time today to talk to Janelle English. And I have Nichelle Turner coming up on the backside. There is breaking entertainment news, and Nichelle just got called away. So I'm going to twist Janelle's arm. Just stick around for another 25 minutes, and we can continue this dialogue if that's okay with you. I got a few more things I want to question. So it worked out that I got more time with you. You can still come back later, but I got more time today. But I want to ask right quick, in a minute and a half I have now, we can start this. We'll continue when we come forward. You talked about the expectation of Black women. It just so happens when all this drama was going on around Oscars So White, and the commitment was made to do better, that there was a sister, as you mentioned earlier, running the Academy. And then you come in and you're reporting to this sister. So you got two sisters who were basically at the epicenter of fixing what's been wrong with Hollywood for years. What did you feel like those expectations were in that moment of you two Black women?
Oh, they were high.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, I will say it was incredible for me reporting into a Black woman at that point in time. And at that point in time, there was a strong Black representation across the executives within the Academy. I had, you know, my brother, Sean Finney, who was leading the membership and awards side of the house. Meryl Johnson, who was leading digital at that time. We had Patrick Harrison, who, you know, was running our New York membership at the time. There were some really incredible Black voices at the Academy, none of whom are there anymore. So, you know, I there's, you know, I'm sure a lot of reasons, but I think, you know, the reality for me in reporting to a Black woman was incredible. I think the pressure that is put on you in representing, you know, a 96-year-old organization is also incredible.
When we come forward, I want to talk about this retrenchment that you basically just teed up for me a moment ago. I want to talk about retrenchment in Hollywood in some way, certainly inside the Academy. I want to talk about the point you made earlier, that oftentimes as Black folk, certainly as Black women, we're not set up for success. There are reasons for letting us in the room, inviting us in, but we're not really set up for success. I'm curious, obviously, about your take on the blackest Oscar show ever and how that went, you know, just blew up, imploded. We'll get your take on that. And, of course, I've got more time now, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time than I'd planned to talk about Elizabeth, the project that she has founded and is working on now. So, again, God works in mysterious ways. Janelle English is still here. I'm still here. Hopefully you're still here. We'll do this a bit more when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Seeking the truth. Speaking the truth. This is the Tavis Smiley Show.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. In Nevada, the man seen in a viral video attacking a Las Vegas judge has been charged with attempted murder in connection with the attack. The African-American man also is charged with more than a dozen other crimes, including 6 counts of battery on a protected person. The man is accused of diving over the bench and injuring Clark County District Judge Mary Kay Holthus as she was sentencing him in an attempted battery case. A massive winter storm is expected to slam the East Coast today. The storm will bring strong winds to the mid-Atlantic and Northeast with gusts of up to 50 to 70 miles per hour possible. At least 2 inches of rain could fall from Florida to Maine, with more than 85 million people under flood watches. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Shop the closeout event now at Lowe's. Get up to 35% off select major appliances. Plus, save an extra $100 when you spend $999 or more on all major appliances. Valid 1/4/24 to 1/24/24. Selection varies by location while supplies last. See Lowe's.com for details.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
Impressive win for the Clippers last night. They beat Phoenix by 27. All 5 starters scored in double figures. Paul George led the way with 25 points. Kawhi Leonard had 5 steals. Over the past 5 games, Kawhi has 15 steals and 7 block shots. The Clippers are straight up balling. They are 10 games over 500 and 15-3 since December 1st. The Lakers are back on the court tonight. They play Toronto at Crypto.com, 7:30 tip-off. The Lakers are trying to get back to 500. They're 1 game below. Michigan wins the college football national championship. They beat Washington last night by 21 to cap a 15-0 season. Let the chatter begin. Did Jim Harbaugh coach his final game in Michigan? The Chargers need a premier coach like Harbaugh to help turn around the franchise and restore the fan base. Stay tuned. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice. Continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at unbound.org.
Don't settle for bumps, ingrowns, and itch due to dry skin. Venus for Pubic Hair and Skin is here with the only razor and regimen specifically designed for your pubic area, featuring a razor with a patented irritation defense bar and skincare regimen that is dermatologist and gynecologist tested. Venus helps protect your pubic skin from shave irritation. Visit GilletteVenus.com to learn more about our full regimen of products.
Every business seeks an advantage, whether it's having the best location, hiring top talent, or spotting trends before they happen. And now, the United States Postal Service can give your business a new advantage. Introducing USPS Ground Advantage. Reliable and affordable 2 to 5 day package shipping. It's the advantage you need at the price you want. Get the Ground Advantage at USPS.com/advantage. The United States Postal Service, delivering for America.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Anjali.
Hi, it's Jennifer Coolidge. I just got an alert for a strange charge on my card.
No problem. We make sure you're never held responsible for unauthorized purchases on your Discover card. Let's see. Did you purchase something from a t-shirt cannon store yesterday?
Absolutely not. No, I already have like 3.
$0 fraud liability guarantee. It pays to Discover. Learn more at discover.com/creditcard. Limitations apply.
Skincare is self-care, and with daily beauty steals of 50% off during Ulta Beauty's Love Your Skin event, I can find everything I need to make loving my skin a daily practice, from brands like Osea, Lancome, and Tula. And I can shop weekly skin and wellness deals of 30% off more must-have brands. Plus, see what's new from brands like Bubble and in select stores, Sol de Janeiro and Ulla Henriksen. Hurry, event ends January 20th. Shop in store, online, or try pickup today. Ulta Beauty, the possibilities are beautiful. Conditions apply.
More honesty than you can handle. More empowerment than you can imagine. You're tuned in to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Janelle English. Janelle English is one of those 6 sisters who just a year or so ago were running Hollywood on the diversity, equity, and inclusion front. And then all of a sudden, 4, 5, 6, 7 just bolted. They were all gone, and this became a huge story. Janelle had the courage and conviction and commitment and character to write an op-ed piece in the LA Times, got a whole lot of people's attention when she came out and just laid it bare, as we say, tell it like it is, told it like it was. Since then, she's founded a program called Elizabeth. We'll talk about that in these remaining moments here before we lose her at the top of the hour, and for that matter, before this show ends today at the top of the hour. So we'll get to that, but I've been having a rich dialogue with her about all things Hollywood and all things Black Hollywood. And what it means to be trying to advance notions of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in spaces that aren't always so welcoming. And she learned that firsthand when she was at the Academy, and I'm delighted to have Janelle on in this hour. We were talking earlier about Black women expectations. I asked what you thought about that with regard to you and the president at the time, who happened to be sort of a Black woman. And in response to that, Janelle, you made the point that so often we are not set up for success. It's like they need us. It's like there's a turkey at Thanksgiving, then there's all the garnishment around it. So it's like they need us as garnishment. But you're really not set up for success. Did you feel in that moment that you weren't set up for success?
I think when I first started, I had everything I needed to get a lot of things done really quickly. One of that was, my reporting line, the CEO at the time, the board at the time. I had a lot of support, and the staff at the time. I think a lot of people looked at my job and said, I'm here to fix Hollywood. I was there to also support a really diverse workforce. We were opening a museum at that time, really questioning and challenging how we contextualize some of the problematic sides of the film history as well. How do we support and uplift a staff? I think a lot of people didn't realize that the Academy is also a very rich film archive and library. And how are we as an institution at that time making sure that the stories that we are archiving, the films that we are preserving, how are we making sure those are diverse? Because that's a big part of this as well, is, determining which histories, when you look at film, are important to keep alive, and which histories are important to contextualize. So that was a lot of my job as well. So when you asked earlier, like, okay, it wasn't that long that you were there. Did you get everything you wanted to get done? Absolutely. From an internal perspective, again, building policies in place to have a more diverse and inclusive film archive and library was incredible, and had a great team to work with on that piece to, help facilitate the opening of a museum and provide training for the staff to be able to talk to really challenging aspects of film history in this space. that was incredibly rewarding. To create policies to support staff who were transitioning at the workplace, that was important for me. So there were all these other aspects that kept me busy every single day. But a lot of the conversation, the narrative, the expectation was on this macro level that was impossible for one person, one Black woman to change on her own. My job was much bigger than me. And for this industry to truly change and evolve, there's going to need to be more collective action.
You mentioned earlier that there were a number. You did a roll call, essentially. You gave us all the names of all these persons who were in these powerful positions inside the Academy. And here we are just a few years now after Oscars So White, after the blackest Oscar show ever. And all those Black people have exited the building. And so I, sitting in this seat, on this side of the table, could read that as retrenchment. Which is no different than what we're experiencing right now in DE&I across the board, as you well know. All these companies made all these commitments after the murder of George Floyd. They ain't kept them. And now we see retrenchment in that regard. There are all kind of stories every other day about retrenchment on DE&I. We see it under attack every single day. In part, what just happened at Harvard to Claudine Gay, in part, is about retrenchment. We don't want truly diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the jury is still out about who we really are. Not the ideals we profess, but these ideas that are getting crazier and crazier by the day. So that's another conversation for another time. My point is that I could read the fact that all those Black people left the building after you left the building as retrenchment. Would that be a correct read, or am I missing something?
Some of them left before I did. I will say this exodus of Black talent, particularly at the Academy, happened all in 1 year. And it's honestly, it's hard to see. And as someone who was in the position at that time and started to see this exodus, of course, I ask questions. Of course, you get a little bit concerned by that, right? And what gives me a little bit of hope in all of this is knowing how incredible and smart and brilliant these individuals are, and knowing firsthand that the work that they are still doing is going to really shift, challenge, and shake the industry going forward. I believe that, right? I hate, though, when I sit with this, I hate, thinking about that exodus, honestly. There's great talent that I think, unfortunately, the Academy no longer has access to. And that's their loss. And that's their loss.
There's been so much conversation, as if you don't know this. So much conversation. I just saw Dave Chappelle's new special the other night, and Dave goes in on this. He now has his take on what happened at the blackest Oscar show ever. He and Chris Rock were on tour together for the last year, so I don't want to give Dave's special away. If you've not seen his latest Netflix special, pretty funny, but he really goes into this and gives you his take on the Will Chris thing. And there have been so many jokes made about this. My favorite is that the Oscars were too black, so black in fact that they go in the other direction next year. They ain't even letting black limousines pull up at the Oscars the next year. I'm not a comedian, but the jokes will fly everywhere, right? But and I'm not asking specifically about Will and Chris. I am asking about what it meant or means, if anything. Maybe it's much ado about nothing. That Oscar show was so black. You got black nominees, you got black winners, you got a black host, you got black producers behind the scenes. It was so black, and it sort of imploded. Your thoughts, if you have any, about what that means, if it means anything at all.
Look, I don't know if it imploded. I think the reality is with all of these award shows, you're seeing a massive, massive, massive decrease in viewership across the board. I think generationally, these award shows just aren't tracking. The awards themselves aren't as significant to certain communities and generations. So I think it's actually easy to sit here and say, oh, it was a black show, it failed, right? Like, I think that's a great scapegoat. I will say, having seen what it takes to produce a show of the magnitude of the Oscars, I have the utmost respect for Will Packer and Shayla Cowan. I think they did a hell of a job in, really trying to bring some new energy to a show that honestly was dying. And it's not even just the Oscars, it's the awards show. Period. Yeah, all of it is. I really hate, though, that somehow the narrative that gets caught up in some of this is, oh, it was too black and it failed, so we can't go that black again, right? it's like, no, we tried something new, but now the blackness of it all is being turned into some sort of dagger against, the culture, which I find really concerning and disappointing. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people really understand what it takes to produce a show of that magnitude again. Yeah. You have a board of 54 people that you have to answer to. You have incredible craftspeople who work in this industry for for a living, who have opinions. Yeah. It's hard.
There was a moment when we come forward, I want to talk about Elizabeth now, spend the rest of our time talking about what you are doing now. But there was a moment, you mentioned that 54-person board. There was a moment many years ago in my career when there was a vacancy at the head of the NAACP, the venerable NAACP. And given all the work that I've done in my career and the books and all the things I've done, people came after me. And indeed, the search firm, I've never said this publicly, I don't think, the search firm came to me and wanted to spend a lot of time with me about whether or not I was interested in being the president, the national president of the NAACP. And I asked them one question. Is the board still 64 people?
Yeah.
They said yes. I said, no, thank you.
Good question.
That was
Great question. Seriously.
I am not wrestling with 64 Negroes every day. I'm just not going to do it. And so I thanked them, but I said, I don't think I'm the guy you want to talk to. I digress on that when we come forward. We'll talk about Elizabeth, the new project from Janelle English, who you're listening to right now on Tavis Smiley.
Hope, agency, dignity. This is Tavis Smiley.
Can you dig it? Come on! What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
You know that Big Bargain detergent jug is 80% water, right?
80% water? I thought I was getting a better deal because it's so big.
If you want a better clean, Tide Pods are only 12% water. The rest is pure, concentrated cleaning ingredients.
Ooh, pass me the intercom thingy.
Attention shoppers. If you want a real deal, try Tide Pods.
Don't pay for water. Pay for clean. If it's got to be clean, it's got to be Tide Pods.
Water content based on the leading bargain liquid detergent.
So, what are you doing this Friday morning? How about you come join the KBLA delegation as we make a historic announcement and unveil our climate justice campaign for 2024. We'll be assembled for this major press conference along with LA Mayor Karen Bass, Ben Jealous, Executive Director of the Sierra Club, and a host of other public and private leaders who are joining us on this journey to justice, climate justice. We can't think of a better way to kick off the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday weekend, linking social justice and climate justice. So, come join us this Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. at the beautiful MLK Memorial Tree Grove at the top of Kenneth Hahn Park off La Cienega. Once again, that's this Friday morning, January 12th at 10:30 a.m. as we take on the task of elevating the climate conversation by amplifying the voices of those who are most impacted by the climate catastrophes we are all witnessing in real time. KBLA delegation, we hope to see you this Friday morning at KBLA Talk 1580. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king. Climate is king.
Mr. Clean, Mr. Clean.
Of course I use Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to clean tough messes off my stovetop and bathtub. But then I discovered I can also use it to easily clean my patio furniture and even my shoes. I'm hooked.
And when wipes won't cut it, I use Magic Eraser Sheets. They're thin and flexible erasers, perfect for everyday messes, like gunk on my counters and sinks. They really are magical.
The reviews are in. Mr. Clean Magic Eraser and Sheets make cleaning look easy.
Helping to make you the most knowledgeable person in your circle of friends. This is Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Janelle English. All right, Janelle, I'm watching my time here. I want to spend the rest of our time today talking about Elizabeth, and my question is very simple. Tell me about Elizabeth.
Elizabeth is, it's the culmination of everything that I've learned, everything I've experienced, everything I've done. A lot of folks, especially who know me in this LA season, don't know. Before I took the job at the Academy, before I moved to LA, I spent 7 years working in entertainment in Europe. So I was bouncing around, living in London and Paris. I had a stint in Korea as well. And I became really passionate about redefining what diversity work looked like because of these experiences I was having abroad. And I remember in 2020, I was still in London at the time, and I was by myself, my family here, and the one thing that kept me grounded were books. I was reading books, especially books by Black women, and that helped me feel so tethered and connected to humanity. And during that season, I also had some of the most honest, real conversations with my girlfriends about life, our experiences, our perspectives, things we'd never touched on. I guess the pandemic will do that when you literally have nothing to do but to sit and maybe jump on a FaceTime. So Elizabeth really is a publishing company at its heart. And I didn't realize when I founded this in 2020 how significant that would be. But when I ended up in this role within the Academy and I was sitting here and understanding how the industry moved in different ways, I saw the value of IP ownership. And I didn't realize, but a few years earlier, I had founded a vehicle for IP ownership in Elizabeth. And Elizabeth is really a place and a space for first-time writers, incredible storytellers, first-time writers from the communities that I desperately champion every single day, to give them the infrastructure to write their stories, to put them out into the world, to create that IP. And the lens that I use for this is, are these stories that can be turned into something else, whether they might inspire a new unscripted series, an episodic, series, a film, etc. That is the lens that I use when I say, yes, let's write this story. Let's develop this story. Let's put it out into the world. So that's there. But what's unique about Elizabeth is the impact side of this work as well. So how do I fund the publishing? I actually invest the profits of my work doing consulting work or supporting on different film campaigns, etc. I invest that back into the ecosystem of creating IP for our communities. So that's really Elizabeth. And the best part about Elizabeth is that is also my great-grandmother's name, my great-great-grandmother's name, my middle name. Elizabeth represents just the soul of women in my family who are educators, who are community builders, who are connectors. And I really believe that I'm bringing that ancestral strength in the work I'm doing today.
I was waiting for that. I didn't think I had to pull it out of you, but I didn't. You got it out. Our remaining moments with Janelle English when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
What's your quarrel with the world? You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
My daughter was diagnosed with a rare malignant rhabdoid tumor on the spine. They sent her straight to St. Jude. My hope was gone. But when you get there, everyone's like, hey, we're not going to give up. And when you see other people not giving up on your child, that makes all the difference in the world. When I found out I didn't have to pay, I was just grateful. They saved my baby's life.
Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
Hey, I came as fast as I could. What's wrong?
Everything's okay. I just need you to know I'm glowing up.
You just texted SOS Get Here Now.
And I stand by that because I switched to Cricut and got the all-new Motorola Razr. I have entered my flip era, and I am glowing up.
I'm gonna go back home.
I support that.
Switch to Cricut and get the all-new Motorola Razr for $199.99. Smile, you're on Cricut.
Must open a new line on a $60 a month voice plan. First month service charge and tax to sale. Fees, terms, and restrictions apply. See cricketwireless.com for details.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
She's so smooth, so... I'm interrupting my own shower to remind you to treat your skin like the queen she is with Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash, packed with Olay's highest level of vitamin B3 complex. It's so moisturizing that it will give you visibly smoother, head-turning skin in just 14 days. People wondering, how'd she get so smooth? Olay Hyaluronic Body Wash. Also, try Olay Hyaluronic Body Lotion.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right.
Y'all gotta try that Febreze car.
Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistent scent, all over Febreze car clips right on your vent. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah. Breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Made fresh daily in Leimert Park, Los Angeles, California. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Tavis Smiley and Janelle English. We got about 4 minutes left in this conversation, which I have enjoyed immensely. Thank you for coming in, Janelle English. Thank you for the time, and I'm glad that we snuck in some extra time. We're getting the show back on when she has time, but this was what it was supposed to be. It worked out in the way that it was supposed to be. Let me close with two things. One, I want to close with Elizabeth on a high note, but I'm wondering very quickly whether or not you still see other opportunities, maybe even greater opportunities for inclusion, better representation in entertainment when it comes to people who look like you and me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I still believe in solutions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we are seeing some really, really interesting models that are shifting the way, particularly in filmmaking, that films are getting made and distributed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I look at Ava DuVernay's film, Origin,
Mm-hmm.
incredible film, by the way. I encourage you all to really go out and see this. I'm inspired not just by the story and the incredible writing, but I am inspired by how the film actually got financed.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people don't really understand what it takes to create a film. And a lot of what's required, that capital, comes from this studio system, which, again, is hard to tap into. But Ava found this brilliant way to raise the funds for this film outside of the system. Mm-hmm. And that does create different challenges in terms of how it gets distributed, right? But I think this model is like the independent film community on steroids, mm-hmm. right? Where she's demonstrated a possibility and a new possibility to fund and finance really powerful stories. Mm-hmm. And then separately, we look at distribution, right? Because it's one thing to continue to make these films and get the money to make them. Yeah. But when you look at even Taylor Swift, Beyonce, they went straight to the theaters and brokered a deal to distribute the films from their concerts there. You also see the emergence of new digital platforms. David Oyelowo, Nate Parker, they have an incredible new platform, mm-hmm. Mansa, that's focused on distributing Black content. Mm-hmm. So these vehicles are here. I think the call to action is, how is the collective community investing in these and making sure they succeed? Whether it's going to see Origin in theaters or it's downloading Mansa and subscribing and watching that content, that we all need to play a part.
You're seeing a Black-owned station right now, in part because Prince told me many years ago that content is king, and then he came back a year or two later and said, I think I'm right about that. Content is king, but distribution is emperor. Content is king, but distribution is emperor. You got to get your own distribution model at some point. I got 45 quick seconds left here. Okay. What are your hopes and dreams for the future of Elizabeth?
We have 3 book projects in the pipeline for this year, and I am so excited for that. So please, if you want to learn more about Elizabeth, you can find us online, follow us on social media, theelizabethco.com. If you have a story that you're burning to tell, I would love to hear about it. Separately, if you're in need of consulting work, again, this is how I invest in these stories. So please don't be a stranger. I really, again, am here to focus on change. And again, I believe in solutions.
Her name is Janelle English, and she is at theelizabethcole.com. That's theelizabethcole.com. I love the story of you bringing that name and that legacy forward. Congratulations, and we'll do it again, I promise.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for coming in. That's our show for today. Just like that, 3 hours gone. Back here tomorrow to do it all over again, Lord willing. Until then, thanks for tuning in, and as always, keep the faith.